Welcome back to the MOC course on Corporate Social Responsibility. My name is Aradhana Malik and I'm helping you with this course. And we were discussing various aspects of stakeholders, and in this lecture we will talk about stakeholder theory in action. So let's see what it means to apply those concepts. How do they apply to real situations, and how do we start? We are now going into the nuts and bolts of the stakeholder theory of CSR, and finally we will take this discussion from here to how do we actually do CSR in the field. So let's see what we have. Okay, now there are, the stakeholder theory rests on normative theories. It rests on it has its basis in the definitions of right and wrong, appropriate and inappropriate, and stakeholder theory states that, according to stakeholder theory, we consider the interests of the stakeholders because it is right, it is the right thing to do, it is the appropriate thing to do, to consider the interests of the stakeholders. Now, in doing so, we need to make certain decisions that are ethical in nature. When we take the stakeholder theory into account and we try to look after the interests of the stakeholders, we must make decisions that are ethical, that are right, that are moral. So the difference between ethical, moral and right and wrong is not, it's outside the scope of this discussion, but just to simplify things, I'm using these terms interchangeably. So there are 6 steps in ethical decision making, and the acronym that helps you remember these steps is PASCAL, P-A-S-C-A-L, and this is been referred to in the work of Goodpaster. The paper was published in 1991. I'll give you the complete reference for it. Now, these 6 steps are perception, analysis, synthesis, choice, action and learning. Let's see what each of these mean. Perception or fact gathering about the options available and their short and long term implications. So, when we talk about decision making, we first need to find out what we have. We need to find out what we can work with. We need to find out what is there for us to work with. So, we identify the choices, the options available to us, and we try to find out the long and short term implications of these options. So, perception is about fact gathering. The second step is analysis. Now, what we do in this stage is, once we know what we have, then we analyze these implications with specific attention to the affected parties and to the decision makers' goals, objectives, values, responsibilities, etc. I know what my options are, but do these options help me achieve my goals? Do these options help me fulfill my responsibilities? Are these options in line with my value system? Is it the right thing to do? So, we try to find out the relationship, we try to establish relationships between the options available to us and what we can and cannot do as per our objectives, goals and value systems. Many times something very appealing is in front of you, but you don't take that option. Why? Because it doesn't seem right. An example of this is bribing. Many of us no longer want to bribe the officials in the train to confirm a seat if we have an RAC. So it's increasingly becoming popular. We are becoming more and more vigilant. We don't want to succumb to these pressures. How do we make that decision? We prefer to sit. If you have a reservation against cancellation seat, an RAC seat in the Indian Railways, this means you can board the train and you can sit, but you don't have a berth to lie down. So, as soon as a seat is cancelled, you are able to, it's the responsibility of the ticket collector or the train conductor to go and find you that seat and to inform you that a seat is available, and then you go and occupy that seat. Now, sometimes we find some unscrupulous people asking for bribes, and they'll say, okay, well, you're here, I'll give you a confirmed seat, I won't tell the other person. I'm not saying it happens all the time, but occasionally we have seen this happening. And many of us do not succumb to that pressure. We say we will not pay any extra money, not because it costs money, but because it is not right. Or say if we are caught for overspeeding, we prefer to pay the fine instead of just bribing the police constable standing there and saying, please let me go, please don't penalize me here. So we don't want to do something that is wrong. We don't want to cut corners. We will not jump a red light. Even when the road is clear, we will stop at a red light. We don't want to do it. Why? Because it is not the right thing to do. It's not so, we have these options available. You're going speeding on a road and suddenly there's a traffic signal and there is nobody there. And you will still slam on your brakes and you will slam your brakes and you will stop. You don't want to overspeed, you want to stop at the red light sign, you don't want to cross the red light sign even though there is nobody on the road. Why do you do that? The option is available, you go. But you don't do that because crossing that traffic signal when you are not supposed to cross it is not in line with your value system. So when we make these choices, when we are analyzing things, different options are available to us. We choose and we analyze and we say, okay, this option is good, it will save me time, jumping a red light will save me time, there is nobody looking, so the risk of being caught by a police constable or a traffic police constable is low, and I have to reach somewhere on time and this will cost me an extra 2 minutes. That option is also available to you, but I will not do it. Why? Because it is not consonant with my value system. So we find out how these choices that are available to us relate to our responsibilities. I am willing to get late, but I am not willing to compromise on my value system. We have a list of priorities. So, so that is how we analyze these choices. Then synthesis of this structured information according to whatever fundamental priorities obtain in the mindset of the decision maker. So you have all these choices, and let's just take the very, very simple example of jumping a red light. Say at 6 o'clock in the morning, you have to go somewhere and you have to maybe catch a train, or you have to pick up somebody from the railway station early in the morning and you're rushing, or you have to drop your kid at school, some official work, so you're trying to rush. But you have all these available choices and you say, okay, I have to reach the railway station. It is okay if I reach the railway station, stopping at the traffic signal will cost me only 2 minutes, but it will give me peace of mind. Yes, the people who have to go to pick up from the railway station will be delayed. They will start getting anxious, but I will not jump the red signal even though there is nobody watching me, even though the road is clear. I will not jump the red signal. Why? Because I have these priorities in mind. I have these choices. My goal will be achieved, not the way I want to achieve it, but maybe it will be achieved. There will be some dent in it, but still. So I will still appeal, the choice that I make needs to appeal to all these different things, different criteria that I have in my mind. Okay, so you synthesize all this information and you say top priority to get somewhere on time, and to make sure I don't do anything illegal, and to make sure if I get caught then I could be penalized, more time could be wasted. So that's the utilitarian way of looking at it. The ultimate result could be much worse, so let me not do it. So you take all of these things and then you make a picture in your mind and you say, okay, these are the choices available, this is how they link to my goals. Jumping a red light will help me achieve my goal faster, but my value system is a barrier in the middle, so I will not do it. So you make that picture in your mind, and that is the making of that picture in your mind, linking all the available choices to your goals, value systems, your objectives, etc., and prioritizing them into a comprehensive whole is called synthesis. Then the next step in ethical decision making is choice. Now, you have the complete picture in your mind. You know what the available choices are. You have looked at you have analyzed their connections, you have synthesized the information. Now what you need to do is you need to choose. The whole picture is in your mind and you say, okay, considering all of these factors, this is the option that I choose. You make that choice, and then the next step is action. You act on the choice you have made. Action or implementation of the chosen option through a series of specific requests to specific individuals or groups, resource allocation, incentives, control and feedback, various things. You are not going to jump the red light. So, the action you take is you stop and then you inform the people who are waiting at the railway station. These days everybody has a cell phone, so I am using that example. So, you pick up the phone and you call up whoever you are going to pick up at the railway station and you say, I will be late because I was caught in a traffic light. I did not want to jump at the traffic light, I will be late by 2 minutes. You give them whatever reason you give them, but then you also inform them and you act on that choice. So, not only do you stop, you also inform the people who are waiting that, so everything affected by that choice needs to be taken into account and needs to be acted upon, and that is action. Learning from the outcome of the decision, resulting in either reinforcement or modification for future decisions of the way in which the above steps have been taken. I am getting late for some place. I should have jumped the red light to get there on time, but I did not because it's illegal to do so. I reached the place that I am supposed to reach late. What is the learning? I must leave my home, my starting point 5 minutes early, maybe 10 minutes early. I must take into account that these speed breakers, these barriers could be there on the way. So, I budget my time accordingly and I leave my house 10 minutes early. There are red lights on the way. There are traffic signals, I could be confronted, I could reach a red light and I may need to wait. It may not be a completely green light zone. So, that is the learning I take from this whole incident. That is how we make ethical decisions. So, the 6 steps once again: perception, what are the available choices, analysis, synthesis of these choices, then making a choice, then acting on that choice and drawing a learning from that choice for future actions. Okay. What happens is, now we apply all of this to stakeholder analysis. When we talk about stakeholder analysis, how do we choose stakeholders and how do we decide which stakeholder to help? We are finally talking, this is a course on corporate social responsibility, not on decision making, not on management, specifically CSR. So, what do? We perceive the needs of the stakeholders and we analyze them in light of the needs of the stakeholders. So, that is the analysis part. Stakeholder analysis refers to perception of different stakeholders and the analysis of the needs of different stakeholders in light of the value systems, the background, the environment of the stakeholders, and in light of these available choices, in light of what we as an organization can or what stake the stakeholders have in our organization and how this whole thing fits into our organization. That is the analysis. Then synthesis, stakeholder synthesis refers to the next 4 steps: synthesis, choice, action and learning. We take all these choices, we synthesize them, we prioritize what we can and cannot do, what will appeal to the stakeholders, and then we choose, and then we act on it, we implement it, we take the feedback from it and we improve upon the next layer of or the next round of CSR activities. It's as simple as that. It sounds very complicated, but it's all a cycle. You find out what you have, you analyze, you bring the whole picture together, You make a selection, you act on it, and then you learn from it and take the learning and pump it into the future work. Okay. Now, strategic stakeholder synthesis is the essence of a strategic view of stakeholders is not that stakeholders are ignored, but all but a special group, stockholders, are considered on the basis of their actual or potential influence on the management's central mission. The basic normative principle is fiduciary responsibility, organizational prudence supplemented by legal compliance. What is fiduciary responsibility? A responsibility based on trust. So, it is my responsibility to maintain the trust that somebody has in me. And it is used very often in the context of financial dealings. Now, the currency notes that we have, what is money? It's a promise. It's not a promissory note. I will not go into the details of financial documents, but just look at the wording on a regular currency note. So, it's a promise, fiduciary responsibility. Somebody has entrusted me with their interest, with their relationship with my organization, and it is my responsibility to make sure I take care of that trust that somebody else, the stakeholder, the stakes that the stakeholder has in my organization and in the way I work in the organization, in what the organization does, because of this relationship. So, it's my responsibility to maintain that relationship. Okay. Process of strategic stakeholder synthesis. How do we do this? We define ethical behavior partly in terms of the non-strategic decision making values behind it. Business strategy is again not part of this, but then it's related to various aspects of the business. So, so you define ethical behavior partly in terms of the non-strategic decision making values behind it. It's not the values, it's the core values of the organization that help you define what constitutes ethical behavior for your organization. Then recognize that too much optimism about the correlation between strategic success and virtue runs the risk of tailoring the latter to suit the former. We cannot really please everybody. So, when we talk about strategic stakeholder synthesis, we have to keep in mind that we cannot tailor our activities to suit the needs of all the stakeholders. We have to conform to the values of the organization also. So, that is the very core that drives what we do. But we also need to keep in mind that the organization's main responsibilities are taken care of. Okay. Multi-fiduciary stakeholder synthesis. What happens when number of people have trust in us and there are often conflicting views? So, what happens at that point? Balancing the often conflicting fiduciary needs of and commitments to multiple stakeholders of the organization. Where and how does one draw the line? That is the stakeholder paradox. How do you balance the needs of, the fiduciary needs of, and the commitments to multiple stakeholders of the organization? Stakeholder paradox is the obligation of the managers to make money for investors or shareholders. However, if the organization does that, it could be disadvantaging other stakeholders who are affected but may not have invested. So, you have to balance the needs of making money. Yes, it is the most important goal of any organization. But making money may bring with it something that, or some activities that can lead to disadvantaging other stakeholders. So, we can't only run after money, through our organization. Minimize on inputs, minimize on the money we spend on resources, and maximize on the output. We can try to do that, but we also need to keep the interests of the stakeholders into account. For example, again, this is something that I use in another class that I teach, and that is human resources. Human beings, yes, but human resources? Are human beings resources to be used? I don't think so. But what happens? In our run to make money, we use people as resources. By we, I mean profit making organizations. We forget that these are people who need sleep, these are people who need rest, these are people who may fall sick. I've seen this, and in many taxi companies, many organizations that employ drivers. So private bus owners, wherever things are contracted out and people don't have a salary, wherever people work on a contract basis, I have seen this, that many times these drivers work non-stop. That's one example. They'll drive all night and then they'll come back and they will have 3 hours of rest, and they will take some medicine and they'll drive another 6 hours, and then they'll be, and we as the customers, we as people, the passengers in that taxi don't even realize. It's only when you start talking to these people you realize how overworked they are. One is, of course, their willingness to go. The second is that they are not even given a choice. Are we looking after their needs? Are we giving them the right equipment? I was seeing, somewhere I went and I saw some people welding something. They did not have safety goggles. They were doing the welding with their bare hands. Now again, I don't want to spark off a debate here, but this happens, and this was in some far-flung area. I don't know which place, but somewhere in India. So some remote area you go, and people are not using, they use this old time screen. Yes, that is effective. No safety goggles. They are welding something with bare hands. If their hand gets burnt, so what? Many times they don't wear, they wear the minimum amount of clothes so that their clothes don't catch fire. Why? Because these sparks fly, and if you're wearing something even moderately synthetic, it can catch fire. So, so the sparks fall on their skin and they have these little burn marks all over the place. So, this is what I'm talking about. We need to balance the needs of different stakeholders. People who make the organization or who run the organization, who give the organization its profits, are not being looked after in many places. Now, I don't want to take names, but then there are several places, and that is where the strategic stakeholder synthesis comes in. There are many critiques of multi-fiduciary stakeholder synthesis. I must warn you, it's not only about balancing it, but the literature points towards prioritizing the needs of stakeholders, and also says that in order for a company to be successful, it must try to prioritize and it must try to keep things, it must try to attend to the needs of certain stakeholders first and certain other stakeholders next. Employees definitely are top priority in many cases, and they are slowly becoming top priority because of these types of discussions. Okay. Stages of corporate moral development. Various stages of moral development of an organization. We are talking about ethics now, and then we will take the discussion from ethics to CSR. Various stages have been given, and so these are amoral organization, legalistic organization, responsive organization, emerging ethical organization, and ethical organization. Let's see what these are. The amoral organization, A stands for no, not moral organization, says that they must win at all costs. This organization wants to win at all costs. They are driven by greed and short-term orientation. I need to achieve these goals. I need to get this client. I will use whatever strategy I have. That is what they do. It is ethical. Whatever we do is ethical as long as we don't get caught. So, we are doing the bare minimum to escape punishment from the law. Ethical violations, when caught, are considered to be a cost of doing business. You get caught, you pay the fine, you suffer the punishment, you come back and keep doing the same thing again. There is no meaningful code of ethics or other documentation. Nothing is written down that you must do this and you must not do this. That is the amoral organization. The next stage in the moral development of an organization is the legalistic organization. You get caught, you suffer problems, so you say, okay, what is the bare minimum that we need to do? We need to follow the law. So you obey the law. In the first stage, you don't do anything. Second stage, you obey the law. It's driven by concern for economic performance. We need to make profits. We also need to follow the law because the cost of not following the law is very high and it will interfere with my financial output. So I must follow the law. Uses damage control through public relations when social problems occur. Something happens, they use damage control through public relations and they appeal to the public and they try and recover. Reactive approach to ethics. So in a legalistic organization, the ethics, the ethical behavior is a reaction. Something goes wrong, we are reacting to situations. If it's legal, it is okay. We are following the law. If it's within the rules, it's okay. Avoids writing codes of ethics as this can create legal problems later on. Why? Because somebody is going to hold you responsible. They'll say, you have written this down, please follow it. So they avoid writing all legal codes of ethics, and if they produce such a document, it is for internal consumption only. That is the legalistic organization. The third stage is the responsive organization. They realize that being ethical pays. It is characterized by a growing concern for balance between profits and ethics, taking also into account corporate stakeholders other than owners. So it's not only following the law, we really need to do what is right. So we respond. Management understands the value of not acting solely on a legal basis. If yes, following the law is necessary, but if we go a little beyond that and we do a few things that are right, maybe we'll start seeing the benefit. People will think nicely about us, they'll start trusting us, that trust will add to our profits. So they start seeing this. The approach to ethics is based on the profits that ethics may bring. If I am ethical, my earnings are more. So let me be ethical. I don't believe in ethics, but because I've done something right, even though the law does not mandate it, I see the fruits of my labor, so I'll do those things. Why? Because it is finally adding to my profits. Codes of ethics are more externally oriented and reflect a concern for other publics. What do people think of me? So it's all about who's watching me and what do they think of me. They need to think of me, in a very nice way. That is the concern here. People need to think well of me. They need to think that I'm a good organization, and because they are thinking like that, I will get more profits. So that is the responsive organization. Emerging ethical organization is I must do the right thing. Demonstrates an active concern for ethical outcomes, providing support and measures of ethical behavior, although it lacks organization and long-term planning. Shared ethical values provide corporate guidance in some situations. Corporate culture is less reactive and more proactive to social problems when they occur. Codes of ethics become action documents. So the organization really believes in doing the right thing. They are proactive with their ethical efforts, and the need for being acknowledged by external agencies is slowly waning away. It is there, but it's not the only thing. They are doing it because they feel good about it. And the last stage is where ethics become a part of the way you do things. So ethics and economics are interrelated. You really don't see the difference. Being unethical is not a choice. For the ethical organization, unethical activities just don't take place. Being unethical is not a choice. Thoroughly integrates questions of ethical behavior with developing strategy and mission, thereby addressing the fundamental issue of organizational integrity. Totally ethical profile with carefully selected core values. Corporate culture is planned and managed to be ethical. Corporate codes focus on the ethical profile and core values. Okay. So that is what happens in an ethical organization. Now, what happens when stakeholders are not there? What happens to business ethics? Few dilemmas are faced. How do you decide what is ethical behavior when it comes to profit-making organizations? Who are the stakeholders and how responsible should the corporation be to them? Stakeholder paradox is something that we talked about. Stakeholder paradox in the context of multi-fiduciary stakeholder theory. So how do we balance the needs of multiple stakeholders? Stakeholder and as far as stakeholder paradox is concerned, there is a blurring of traditional goals in terms of entrepreneurial risk taking and slowing down of decision making because of the dilemmas posed by divided loyalties. When we try to appeal to the needs of different stakeholders, we run the risk of slowing our decision making down, and there is a blurring of the goals because we are trying to, the goal is to take entrepreneurial risks, but if we take the risk, then we may be damaging, we may be disadvantaging some stakeholders. So one becomes confused, there's a lot of pressure on the decision maker, and that's when these things become a barrier. So some literature has suggested that we must talk about not having, the discussion is on, I'm not saying that they are suggesting that we must remove all attention to stakeholders, but there are some critics who are saying, do we really need to pay this much attention to stakeholders? If yes, how and why? So that is all we have time for in this class, and I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope I've left you with more questions than you came into this class with. If I've done that, I've done my job today. Thank you very much for listening.